On the night of October 9th, 1986, 200 people searched the streets and parkland of Moulsecoomb, Brighton, looking for two missing girls. Among them was a 20-year-old local roofer named Russell Bishop. He brought his terrier along and told police the dog was a highly trained tracker, insured for £17,000. He seemed eager to help, but when the bodies were found the following afternoon, a constable standing beside Bishop noticed something unsettling. Bishop described details about the scene he shouldn't have known, things he couldn't have seen from where he was standing. Within weeks he'd be arrested, within a year he'd be acquitted. And for the next 32 years, the families of two 9-year-old girls would wait for justice that very nearly never came. Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway were best friends. They lived on the Moulsecoomb Council estate on the north side of Brighton, a tight-knit, working-class neighbourhood where everyone knew everyone. Despite attending different schools, the two were inseparable. On Thursday, October 9th, they went out to play after school, around 3:30 in the afternoon. By 5 o'clock, Nicola's mother, Susan, had seen them playing with a roller boot outside. At around 6:30, the girls were spotted near a police box on Lewis Road. A 14-year-old who knew them told the girls to head home. Their parents would be getting worried. Nicola reportedly told Karen, "Come on, let's go over to the park," referring to Wild Park, a local nature reserve on the edge of the estate. They were not supposed to go there. Neither girl came home. When bedtime arrived and the girls still hadn't returned, Karen's mother, Michelle Hadaway, dialed 999. What followed was one of the largest search operations Brighton had ever seen. Police officers, neighbours, and residents fanned out across the estate and the surrounding parkland. A helicopter was brought in to sweep the area from above. The next afternoon, October 10th, two civilian searchers found the girls in a makeshift den deep inside Wild Park. Both Nicola and Karen had been sexually assaulted and strangled. The community of Moulsecoomb was devastated. Flowers piled up at the entrance to the park. For years afterward, and for generations to come, the children of Brighton would be warned never to go near Wild Park. Two little girls had been killed there, and nobody had been held accountable. Suspicion fell on Russell Bishop almost immediately. He lived in the nearby Hollingdean area and was well known on the Moulsecoomb estate. He played football and cricket with Nicola's father, Barry Fellows, and his close friend Dougie Judd was actually lodging with the Fellows family at the time. Bishop had been seen near the same police box on Lewis Road at 6:30 on the evening of the murders, wearing what appeared to be a light blue top. After questioning revealed several contradictions in his story, he was arrested on October 31st and formally charged with the murders on December 3rd. One of the strongest pieces of evidence was a blue Pinto brand sweatshirt found discarded near a railway line close to the crime scene. Police believed Bishop had been wearing it during the murders and ditched it afterward. His girlfriend, Jenny Johnson, denied that the sweatshirt belonged to him and provided an alibi for his whereabouts that evening. Both claims would later turn out to be lies. The trial took place at Lewis Crown Court in December 1987, and what happened there would haunt the families for decades. The forensic investigation had been catastrophically mishandled. The pathologist failed to record the temperatures of the girls' bodies, which meant the time of death could not be accurately determined. The prosecution argued the girls were killed between 6:15 and 6:30 in the evening, but witnesses had placed the girls alive at 6:30. Without hard scientific evidence to challenge those witness accounts, the prosecution couldn't break Bishop's alibi. To make matters worse, the strangulation marks on the girls' necks were never measured. The fingerprints left by the killer were never taken, and blood found on Karen Hadaway's underwear was never analysed. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury acquitted Russell Bishop on all charges. He walked free from court. In the days that followed, he sold his story to the News of the World tabloid for £15,000, presenting himself as a wrongfully accused man. He went on television and told reporters he felt very bitter towards the police, demanding that they reopen the case and find the real killer. Nicola's father, Barry Fellows, was left to grieve his daughter, while the man who killed her gave press interviews. Barry himself would later be wrongfully arrested in 2009 on unrelated allegations that police had already investigated and dismissed back in 1988. Nobody checked the records. He was publicly treated as a suspect in his own daughter's murder. 3 years after walking free from court, Russell Bishop proved exactly what kind of man he was. On February 4th, 1990, a 7-year-old girl named Rachel Watts was roller skating outside her home in Whitehawk, a neighbourhood on the east side of Brighton. Her father had suggested she go buy some sweets from the local shop. But the family had recently moved to the area, and when Rachel found the shop closed, she got turned around on the unfamiliar streets. She spotted a young man working on a red Ford Cortina nearby and asked for directions. The man was Russell Bishop. He was 23 years old. He didn't answer her. Instead, he grabbed Rachel and threw her into the boot of his car. Inside the boot, the terrified girl tried to escape, pulling off her roller skates and using them to bash at the boot door. It didn't open. Bishop drove 14 miles to Devil's Dyke, a secluded beauty spot high on the South Downs. There he assaulted her, strangled her, and stripped off her clothing and left her in gorse bushes and brambles. But Rachel Watts survived. 20 minutes after Bishop left her, she regained consciousness. Bleeding and alone on the downs, the 7-year-old crawled out of the undergrowth. A couple who had driven up to Devil's Dyke to watch the sunset spotted her and immediately called the police. In the days that followed, Rachel cooperated fully with detectives despite the immense trauma she had endured. She identified Bishop from a police lineup. Red paint from her roller skates, transferred when she had tried to bash her way out of the car boot, matched the paint on Bishop's car. Clothing fibres were found inside the boot. Russell Bishop was convicted in December 1990 of kidnapping, indecent assault, and attempted murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 14 years. The press would later call Rachel the bravest little girl in Britain. But bravery doesn't undo what was done to her. Rachel lived with nightmares for decades, recurring visions of Bishop climbing through her bedroom window to finish what he started. She kept her identity hidden for over 30 years, carrying the weight of what happened in silence. She would only come forward publicly in 2022, after Bishop had died, saying she was tired of simply being referred to as the 7-year-old victim and wanted people to know there was a person behind that footnote. Under English law at the time of Bishop's acquittal, a person found not guilty of a crime could never be tried again for the same offence. It was called the double jeopardy rule. And for the families of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway, it meant that no matter what new evidence might surface, the man they believed killed their daughters could never be brought back to court. But cases like this one, where forensic incompetence had allowed a guilty man to walk, put mounting pressure on lawmakers. In 2005, Parliament abolished the double jeopardy rule. From that point on, a person could be retried for a serious offence if new and compelling evidence came to light. The Babes in the Wood case is widely regarded as one of the cases that drove that legal change. The first attempt to revisit the forensic evidence came in 2002, when investigators tried to extract DNA profiles from the original evidence. It failed. In 2006, new tests linked Bishop to the Pinto sweatshirt, but prosecutors concluded there still wasn't enough to justify a retrial. The families were told the case couldn't move forward. Then, in 2012, the breakthrough came. Eurofins Forensic Services, the same laboratory that had helped convict the killers of Stephen Lawrence, was brought in to re-examine the evidence. Senior scientific advisor Roy Green applied modern techniques to the preserved forensic tapings from 1986. The tapings had been so carefully handled and stored by the original officers that they could be treated as a time capsule, untouched material from the crime scene, sealed for 26 years. The results were staggering: a 1,000,000-to-1 DNA match linking Russell Bishop to the discarded blue Pinto sweatshirt. Separately, a taping taken from Karen Hadaway's left forearm was also found to contain Bishop's DNA. In May 2016, Bishop was removed from his cell at Franklin Prison and placed under arrest for the murders of Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway. In December 2017, the Court of Appeal quashed his 1987 acquittal and ordered a new trial. The case was heard at the Old Bailey, beginning in October 2018. During the 9-week trial, the prosecution presented the DNA evidence alongside Bishop's 1990 conviction for the near-identical attack on Rachel Watts. Bishop, for his part, tried to deflect blame onto Nicola's father, Barry Fellows, telling the jury that police had spent 32 years building a case against the wrong man. The jury wasn't convinced. On December 10, 2018, they returned a guilty verdict in 2.5 hours. Bishop received 2 life sentences with a minimum term of 36 years. Justice had taken 32 years, but the case did not end with Bishop's conviction. In May 2021, Jenny Johnson, Bishop's girlfriend at the time of the murders, was found guilty of perjury and perverting the course of justice. She had lied under oath at the 1987 trial, denying that the sweatshirt belonged to Bishop and providing him with a false alibi. Her lies had directly enabled his acquittal and left him free to attack Rachel Watts 3 years later. Johnson was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Russell Bishop died on January 20th, 2022. He had bowel cancer. He was 55 years old. He spent his final moments in a hospital bed, watched over by 2 prison officers. No family came. Despite receiving a 36-year minimum sentence for the murders, he had served just over 3 years for the actual killings. After 32 years of freedom, he should never have been given. In April 2024, Sussex police formally apologised to both families for the failures that had let Bishop walk free in 1987 and for the wrongful arrest of Barry Fellows in 2009. The chief constable stated plainly that Barry should never have been arrested and that there was no evidence of wrongdoing on his part. The family said the apology was welcomed and that Barry had been made a public scapegoat whilst his life and that of his family was already in pieces. His name has rightfully and properly been cleared. In May 2025, a documentary titled The Girl Who Caught a Killer aired on Sky, in which Rachel Watts spoke on camera for the very first time. She described living with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, agoraphobia, and major depressive disorder. She said she had given up her anonymity because Bishop was finally dead and she finally felt safe. The Babes in the Wood case remains the largest and longest-running investigation in Sussex police history. It took 32 years, a change in the law, advances in DNA technology that didn't exist in 1986, and the extraordinary courage of a 7-year-old girl who survived. But Nicola Fellows and Karen Hadaway, 2 best friends from the Moulsecoomb estate, who went to play in the park on an October afternoon and never came home, finally got justice.